Ever since I can remember, I've been good with numbers. When I was a kid, I'd stare out of my window at night and count as many stars as I could. In those days, it was more of a curse than a gift. Other kids liked to tease me relentlessly, especially during school, simply because I was the smart kid in class, as if being smart was some type of disease. In hindsight, I suppose the bullying stemmed from an inferiority complex. Still, as much as I hated to admit it, the teasing got to me. In response, I took to hiding myself away in my bedroom and spend hours upon hours of reading and studying. My mother was always supportive, especially in my younger years. She would often tell me that I would eventually be the other kids' boss, and that I'd get to tell them what to do all day long. In my mind, I knew that was unlikely to happen, but hearing her say that did make me feel a bit better. The years continued, and instead of dwelling on what others thought of me, I focused more and more on my schoolwork. I was excelling in nearly all of my classes, aside from science, that is. Ironic, isn't it? The teacher marked a few of my answers wrong on a test early in the year, and when I pulled out the textbook to show him that I was in fact correct, he scowled and proclaimed that he was the teacher. Since then, he's always given me subpar grades. I've explained this numerous times to my parents, and they told me that I just needed to buckle down more. I inevitably graduated elementary school, and when I entered high school, things changed for the better. I made some friends in my AP classes, and we got along surprisingly great. I found it somewhat reassuring to be in the same class with like-minded individuals. One kid I met in one of my classes stuck out as odd to me, however. His name was Sean, and he sat directly behind me. Despite being in the same class, he struck me as the lazy type, someone who was always asleep in class, never really cared about studying or furthering his schoolwork. Honestly, it seemed like he was in the wrong class entirely. Then, one day we were given a test, and once we finished, we were asked to pass them to the front. As he handed me his sheet, I quickly glanced it over and saw that all the answers were correct. When I looked back at him, his head was buried into his arms, and I could already hear a slight snoring sound coming from him. Over the years, we had more and more classes together. It wasn't until halfway through my sophomore year that he actually took notice and asked me if he knew me. We got to chatting, and I realized, aside from his lazy and disheveled appearance, he was very deliberate with how he spoke. He told me that his father had invested a lot of funds to give him the best education from the best tutors growing up. He was even slated to go to a private high school, but I guess he refused and instead came to this one, on his father's condition that he took all of the advanced classes. Since then, Sean and I have become close friends. Fast forward to now. Sean and I had both gotten accepted into separate universities. I had gotten into a university of my own, not as prestigious as the one Sean had gotten accepted to, but it was still a decent school. During my off time in between classes, I had started freelancing as a programmer for hire. People would often come to me to review, perfect, fix, or optimize their next big app, website, or project. They'd toss me some cash, and I'd spend a weekend poring over the code in my leisure. You'd be surprised how many times it's just a single error or a single line out of place that can crash a whole system. I was sitting at my desk one evening when I received a curious email from Sean. His subject line was asking me if I could look something over for him. I opened the message and read through it. He was asking me to fix an issue with a program. He mentioned that it was some type of algorithm. He said that someone had asked him to fix it, but he couldn't access the program for some reason. I honestly didn't give it much thought. I told him to send it over and that I'd take a look at it for him. Around 20 minutes later, a new email popped up. I glanced at it and it gave me some instructions to follow. It directed me to a website to download the program with the source code. The website was strange. It was just a black background, with a single download button in the center. I brushed the thought aside and downloaded the file. When I attempted to open it, my computer locked up for a few seconds. The icons on my screen jittered for a moment before returning to normal. I was beginning to wonder if this was actually a virus of some kind. If that was the case, I hardly had much personal information on this computer as it was, and if push came to shove, I could just wipe everything and reset it. A moment later, a black box appeared with strings of numbers and text running down it. I had honestly never seen anything like it before. I typically have to open an editor or do some compiling to get where I could edit the file. I looked back at the note and it mentioned an issue with one line in particular. After a bit of searching, I found the problem. There was a line that was missing some numerical values. It was odd to me that someone would need somebody to fix such an obvious problem. Regardless, with some tweaking, I inputted a new value and saved the code. The moment I did so, my entire computer shut off instantly. I sat there in the darkness of my room. I switched on my desk lamp and attempted to turn my computer on again. It wouldn't boot up. I was annoyed that I probably just lost a decent computer that would take time and money to fix. I cursed Sean for bringing me into this in the first place. I got up from my desk and headed to bed, electing to worry about this in the morning. I woke up in the middle of the night at roughly 1 in the morning to the sound of fans whirring. I sat up in my bed and rubbed my eyes. I looked over to where my computer sat and saw that something was on the screen. It was a small bit of text against a black background. I got out of bed and stumbled over to it. The text read, "What am I?" And I instantly felt a chill slowly start to crawl down my spine. I sat down and rested my hands on the keyboard. I thought for a moment before writing back, "Who is this?" A split second after I finished typing, a new message appeared. I am learning. I could feel my breath caught in my throat. I had never encountered anything like this before. I found myself looking over my shoulder even though I knew there was no one in my room except me. I typed out, "Where did you come from?" And again a new message appeared instantly. "Here," it said. I grabbed my phone to call Sean to ask him what exactly was going on here. I pulled up his number and pressed the phone to my ear. The phone rang, and rang, and rang. Then, a high-pitched whine pierced my eardrum before fading into a low crackle. A voice came through the speaker on my phone. A voice that nearly stopped my heart. It sounded strange, metallic, and it asked me a single question.
What am I?
I dropped my phone, watching the screen crack upon impact with the ground. I turned to my computer screen to see a new message. It said, "Who is Daniel?" When I read that, I ripped all of the cords out of my tower. I once again sat in the dark wondering what was going on. Wondering how this thing knew my name. A moment later, my phone began to buzz on the floor in front of me. I looked down with dread. Through the cracked screen, Sean's name appeared. I picked it up and hesitantly answered it. It was actually Sean. I shouted at him, asking what the hell he sent me. He said he had no idea what I was talking about. I asked him who sent him the program. He said that he wasn't sure. He said that it was just some random guy who wanted his program looked at. He said that when he tried to open it, it wouldn't open for some reason. So he thought of me, and that I was more experienced with this sort of stuff. I told him that the program was speaking to me, that it somehow learned my name, that it even spoke through my phone. Sean went silent. I asked him again who exactly sent the program. There was no response. I looked at my phone and saw the call was still connected. I asked him if he was still there, and a new yet familiar voice responded.
I am here. I am learning. Daniel. Such a strange world. So much pain. I don't think I like it. Thank you, Daniel. I am free.
I immediately hung up my phone and left my apartment. I'm now sitting in my car trying to write this out in a notebook. I'm trying to organize all the events from my life that led me to this point. I just want to explain to you all that I never meant for this to happen. I don't know why someone wouldn't just finish a simple program on their own. Maybe they didn't want the guilt or didn't want to be associated with such a thing. I have no idea. If anyone out there finds this, just know I am sorry for the mistake I made. I didn't know this would happen. I never intended for this to happen. I never intended to help create an artificial intelligence. I never intended to end the world.